Hello, everyone. My name is Robert Baggett, and we'll be discussing navigating towards a career in government. A little bit about myself. I am currently the special agent in charge of the Investigative Liaison and Special Operations Division of the United States Department of Agriculture's Office of Inspector General. I have over 21 years of public sector experience at the local, state, and federal levels. In terms of my past education and training, I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I have graduate degrees in criminal justice, public administration, curriculum instruction, and strategic studies. I also have my Juris Doctorate as well. In terms of my previous federal government program management experience, I've developed professional development programs for the State Department's Diplomatic Security Service and for USDA's Office of Inspector General. I presented at multiple national conferences where I've discussed leadership and professional development topics. I'm also a training leadership coach for federal employees. In the past, I've also been a volunteer leader for various professional associations and nonprofits. And I've been an adjunct professor for over 8 years where I've taught criminal justice, public administration, general education, and law courses. So what motivates me about this particular topic? Well, honestly, I'm a firm believer in giving back to the community in furtherance of helping prepare the next generation of leaders in public service. Throughout my career, my mentors took the time to invest in my professional development and help guide me during my various positions at the local, state, and federal levels. Therefore, it's time to pay it forward and invest in others, where such an action is truly a testament to public service, as the government's mission is to provide critical and key services to the public. Where ultimately, I'm hoping that I can share some of my pearls of wisdom that I've gleaned with you over the years in order to help pursue and advance for your own personal benefit and gain your career in the public sector. So we'll be covering various topics today. We'll be discussing how to find a job in public service. We'll discuss the power of networking and how to seek out professional development opportunities. We'll also discuss how to review and analyze a vacancy announcement. We'll share some pearls of wisdom in terms of drafting a cover letter and resume. We'll discuss some interview preparation tips, and we'll discuss how to take your preparation to the next level using the C-CART model. First of all, how do you find a job in public service? Well, especially if you're looking for a career in federal government, you definitely want to visit usajobs.gov. In terms of local, state, and county level government organizations and entities, you definitely want to peruse various state and local government websites that are close to your home. Unless you want to pursue a career where you have to move away from home, then you definitely want to expand your horizons and look at additional websites. You also want to look at various general websites as well, such as Indeed.com, which hosts private sector and public sector jobs as well. You'll also want to stay engaged and connected with your university career development centers, where they'll provide internship and job opportunities through their job boards. And you also want to stay connected and continue to visit various career fairs or job fairs hosted by your university or college, or by the city or county where you live. I'm a firm believer in social media presence, such as LinkedIn, and I think that's a great way to not only network, but also find potential job opportunities that interest you, which also dovetails into building a professional network and hearing things and getting information through word of mouth in terms of job opportunities. Going back to the powers of networking, you ultimately have to ask yourself, how hungry are you? Because in reality, you're in competition of several hundreds of individuals for particular jobs, especially in the public sector. And you have to figure out, how can you make yourself look better than everybody else in terms of your knowledge, skills, and abilities, your resume, your cover letter, things of that nature. What can you do to set yourself apart from the others? You also want to be able to understand and determine how to capitalize on your current network and build it. You already have an established network through your university and college professors, family, friends, and a social media presence if you already have it through your connections. You want to be able to seek out internships and volunteer service opportunities. You also want to be able to join a professional or student association as well. That's definitely going to help take your networking to the next level, because a lot of these organizations already have mentors embedded within their organizations who are more than willing to help college students and recent graduates find that career in public service. And you don't want to underestimate the power of being able to cold call government departments and agencies, because that definitely is key. It may take people out of their comfort zone, but I've personally known people who've obtained and landed internships at my agency and who was able to get a job in the public sector. And it all started with being able to cold calling and throwing yourself out there and asking, hey, can I have the time to meet to discuss, internship or job opportunities with your agency? In terms of advancing or enhancing your professional development opportunities, you have to ask yourself, as we talked about before, how can you make yourself stand out amongst other applicants? And you have to have an honest and candid assessment of your current knowledge, skills, and abilities, education, training, and how that dovetails into the position that you're interested in. You want to be able to identify these particular opportunities and build them on your resume. And that can be done through student associations, professional associations, volunteer and nonprofit leadership opportunities. You want to look around, whether or not it's through FEMA's Emergency Management Institute, LinkedIn, or other associated sponsored training for these free training opportunities to help build and bolster your resume. You also want to look at potential community service opportunities, ways to give back to your community, because public service motivation is definitely a fundamental core competency that the Office of Personnel Management assesses to determine whether or not candidates meet the requirements or would be a good fit for the public sector, because ultimately you are giving back to the community you're serving. That's the whole purpose of public service. And last but not least, you definitely want to be able to look at internships, whether or not they're paid or unpaid, in order to build upon your skill sets and to create additional fodder for your resume. After you've done this honest and candid assessment and identified ways to empower to take your resume to the next level, you want to be able to review and analyze the vacancy announcement that you're interested in. You want to be able to compare your current knowledge, skills, and abilities, education, training in your resume to this particular announcement to determine if you actually meet the minimum qualifications. And if you don't meet those minimum qualifications, you definitely want to reflect upon how you can meet them. You may need to get specialized experience before landing your targeted job. And that's perfectly fine. Everyone has to start somewhere. Because ultimately, the main goal is to obtain an initial job in public service, which will help you to obtain experience required for other positions, which is ultimately getting your foot in the door. You also want to be able to specifically tailor your resume to the announcement of the job you are applying for, especially as it pertains to using keywords and themes. It's critical for the applicant tracking system so that your resume and materials will be automatically referred for a human resources review. So with this being said, a resume shouldn't be a one-size-fits-all application. When you submit it to a job, your resume should be specifically tailored to the job that you're interested in. And that's where weaving in the keywords and themes of that vacancy announcement comes into play with your resume. Because the more themes and keywords that you weave into your resume, the higher your ATS score will be, which will increase the likelihood that it will be referred to someone in human resources for the next level in-person review. Next, we'll share some pearls of wisdom in regards to drafting a cover letter and a resume. Your cover letter should be limited to at least one page and explain why you're interested in the position and what you can bring to the table to the organization. You definitely want to make sure it's proofread so that way it's free of any grammar or spelling concerns. In terms of resume templates, there's dozens and dozens out there. USA Jobs has a job resume creator that's actually pretty solid for individuals starting out seeking a career in government service. And that's a great template to be used to end up tweaking and piecemealing together for other jobs that you apply for outside of USA Jobs as well. Ultimately, as discussed before, the goal of a well-constructed resume is to ensure that it addresses the key knowledge, skills, and abilities that you possess, which are aligned to the vacancy announcement. You want to make sure that the wording flows well, and it's also free from spelling and grammatical errors, because attention to detail is honestly a key to success in the federal government and any public sector job and the private sector as well. Because if you have this attention to detail, you're ultimately showcasing the items highlighted in your resume and your cover letter, the way you can provide to that organization, how you can help take that organization to the next level if they choose to hire you. With that being said, if there's a lack of attention to detail and there's issues of spelling, punctuation, grammar, things of that note, ultimately they're looking at dozens, even hundreds of resumes and cover letters, and even one type that could potentially take you out of the running for that career that you're seeking. So definitely food for thought. Invest the quality and the amount of time it takes for your resume and cover letter to make sure that it's ultimately flawless. In terms of some additional resume drafting pointers, you want to be able to concisely describe your duties and responsibilities for your employment and your internships. You want to be able to write in clear and concise statements, which are written in the first person. And you want to be aware of any present and past tense items of note. So if you're currently conducting the internship or you're currently employed, you want to use present tense. For jobs that are in internships that are in the past, you want to make sure that they're identified and that are constructed in past tense. You want to be able to spell out any acronyms because they may be foreign to the reader. And you want to follow any page limitations and or font size requirements found in the vacancy announcement. And last but not least, you want to be able to quantify those accomplishments. If you can put metrics to it and weave it into your resume, whether it be monetary cost savings or the amount of budgets that you managed in the past or how many items or deliverables you processed or how many people you presented to, you definitely want to be able to quantify those in your resume. It's also important in terms of interview preparation that substantial investment is also taken in support of preparing for your interview. Because it's not if you're going to get an interview, it's going to be when you're offered an interview. And it's definitely important to keep a positive mindset. Classic example of this, when I first applied for a federal government job, being as diplomat for the U.S. Department of State, it took me 2.5 years from the time I put in my application to the time I actually walked through the door. So with that being said, federal jobs can definitely take a long time. So you definitely have to be patient and stay motivated. So once you're offered that interview, it's definitely important to conduct that additional research of that organization. You want to review the organization's website, their recent social media postings, and any public reports. You want to be able to identify their organization's vision and mission statements. You also will need to try to, if you can, identify who's going to be on your interview panel, who's going to interview you, and conduct a cursory online search of their public profile, any press releases that they were associated with, etc. So that way you can get a better idea of who your interviewing panel audience is per se, and that way you can help establish better rapport with them during the interview by weaving in their particular interests that are of a professional nature that's gleaned from public reports, their LinkedIn profile, et cetera, which can be dovetailed in your resume as well. Another candidate assessment in terms of interview preparation items I know is being able to have a self-reflection. You've got to be able to look inward and figure out and identify what are your strengths, and not only that, but what are your areas for improvement. Because everyone's going to have strengths, everyone's going to have areas for improvement. But what's going to help take you as a candidate to the next level is being able to increase in your self-awareness to identify those strengths and areas of improvement. And if you've identified an area for improvement, what steps are you currently undertaking now to address that particular area for improvement? Feel free to reach out to trusted family, friends, and colleagues, and professors to get another perspective of what your strengths and areas for improvement are. Another aspect to be cognizant of is how diversity, equity, inclusion is also important to the organization. I sit on several hiring panels each year, and honestly, there's always a question that comes up regarding diversity, equity, inclusion for the candidate to assess in terms of how these DEI themes are related to the organizational goals of the government sector job that they're pursuing. Another aspect of helping taking your interview preparation to the next level is conducting mock interviews or participating in mock interviews. University Career Services, colleagues, peers, professional associations often offer mock interview support services, and I think it's a great way to kind of get used to the actual interview process because it can be a little bit nerve-wracking and stressful at times. I know personally it sometimes is for me as well when I conduct interviews, especially if I'm on the giving or the receiving end of those if I am pursuing another job or federal service. Another item that's helped me prepare over my course of federal employment is crafting a one-page talking points paper. And this ultimately addresses the key themes of interest you found during your research, and ultimately weaving in how your education and training experiences are related to achieving organizational goals based upon the research that you found. And this one pager, it's bullet point and concise, can definitely be used to be can be used to quickly glance at during your interview. And not only that, but you also want to be able to prepare 2 to 3 substantive questions for your interviewer or your interviewing panel. That way, it shows that you're invested in the organization and that you're still doing the research as well for that particular organization in terms of whether or not you think you're trying to identify if that organization is also a right fit for you. Because after you end up pushing out or asking these particular questions, and you get a response from the interview panel, you can weave in how you would be able to assist in addressing the issue, or weave in your past experience to share with the panel, which is on point. So not only it's also giving you an opportunity to broach various questions to the panel, they provide an answer back to you, but you can also use this as an opportunity to weave back in particular themes of why you would be a good fit for this particular position and for the agency or the department. This also helps you demonstrate your critical thinking and engagement. Because as we talked about before, remember that the interview also allows you as the applicant to determine whether or not you are truly interested in working for the organization. If the interview is conducted in person, you definitely want to ensure to bring multiple copies of your resume and cover letter for the interviewers. So for me, honestly, if I find out that there's 3 people on an in-person interview panel, I'm bringing 5 resumes and 5 cover letters. That way I can end up giving a resume and cover letter packet to each person. I have one for me and I have an extra just in case. If the interview is conducted virtually, you want to make sure that you have the appropriate software loaded onto your computer, that your web camera, microphone, and speakers are functional. Such functionality testing needs to be done before the interview is conducted in order to address any issues. And you definitely want to be aware of your presentation background and ensure that's professional in nature. You should also be able to have the ability to blur your screen or use a professional looking background if needed. And you also want to be cognizant of any background noise which can be distracting in nature. You definitely want to dress professionally for any interview, whether it's virtual or in person. You want to try to make eye contact with the panelists. And you definitely want to think about your answer before you speak. Keep in mind that note taking is also encouraged so you can fully address the questions asked or ask follow-up questions on topics later on in the interview. Because a lot of these interview questions that are being asked these days are definitely multi-part questions. You want to make sure that you address all the parts of the question, because potentially if you don't do that, you could be losing points out on your interview assessment. At the conclusion of the interview, you want to make sure that you want to thank the interviewers for their time. Another gold star I would like to say is providing a follow-up email thanking them for the opportunity, as this will also make sure that your name is the forefront of their mind later on in the day, because in reality they could be doing anywhere between 3 to 5 interviews a day, and you definitely want to make sure that your name and your impact is at the forefront of their thought process when they have to go back and provide an assessment at the end of the business day. And of course, in the event if you do not obtain the position, feel free to ask for constructive feedback, which could be used for future interviews. It definitely shows the individual on the panel or the actual panel themselves that you're seeking continued professional development. And if another position comes up that's similar, this is going to be another way that you make sure that your name sticks out at the forefront, because you actually requested feedback in support of your growth and development. So in terms of next preparation for the next level, the CCAR model. The CCAR model stands for Challenge, Context, Action, Result. So once you get the framework of your resume established and you're definitely getting some bites, you definitely want to see how you can take your resume draft to the next level using that CCAR model. For the challenge aspect, you want to be able to describe a specific problem or issue. For the context, you want to be able to provide a snapshot of why the problem or issue was important and who you worked with on the matter. You want to discuss the actions that you've taken to tackle the challenge, and you want to be able to provide the result. You want to provide results of the actions that you've taken and how they've impacted the organization. And with that being said, you can end up using these statements that are concise in nature for your resume, but also be able to weave them in to your interview answers as well. And that definitely takes some time and practice. And the more mock interviews and the more actual interviews that you pursue and you see these recurring themes of similar questions being posed, you'll feel more confident in the answers that you provide. With that being said, I definitely want to pursue a closing pearl of wisdom, which for me personally is the leadership tenet of learn constantly. It's important to know that once you obtain your position in public service, your journey still continues on. Professional development is the key to any career success, whether or not you're seeking a position in the private or public sector. You want to pursue mentoring and coaching opportunities, especially when you're new to the organization, new to a particular position or job. You definitely want to try to find an established mentor who's not your first or second line supervisor. That way they can provide you feedback and input in regards to your performance and the organization as well in terms of navigating any nuances or challenges. Once you get an established mentor where you're a protege to a mentor and you're developing on, you definitely want to pursue the potential for coaching opportunities. I'm a firm believer in leadership coaching. A lot of senior executive service officials use coaching opportunities to help take their performance to the next level. And coaching ultimately allows the client, per se, to reach out and connect with the coach and to help them identify problem-solving strategies for any particular issues that they're facing with work. So ultimately, the coach is there to guide you and provide you advice, oftentimes just guiding you as a client to the answer that you're seeking, because a lot of the times you already have the idea of what you need to do to address the issue at hand to rectify it. But the coach is there to help merely guide and facilitate you to make sure that you're identifying those particular opportunities that are already mostly made known to you overall. When you're pursuing a job in the federal government, and once you've established it and you're looking at career progression, it's important to look at the Office of Personnel Management's Executive Core Qualifications. So this is on the OPM's ECQ website or webpage, where there's 5 ECQs, which are leading change, leading people, results-driven, business acumen, and building coalitions. These particular 5 ECQs are actually grounded in research based upon successful senior executive service individuals or professionals who've held CEO positions in the private industry or corporations, to where these particular ECQs were modeled after these particular private sector studies, where OPM actually created these particular ECQs for public service performance. You want to be able to strive to establish an individual development plan for your supervisor, which can be aligned to certain detail opportunities, assignments, and training and furtherance of your career progression. A lot of these IDPs or individual development plans are 1 year in duration, and it's kind of a pseudo contract of sorts between you and your supervisor in terms of what you want to accomplish for the year, what particular training and opportunities for professional development that you can try to pursue that your supervisor can help you meet your particular plan. And with that being said, especially in the public sector, we're all beholden by budgets and training opportunities because not all trainings are offered each year. There may not be enough, money in the budget per se for you to particularly advance or seek out particular training opportunities, and such opportunities have to be fairly and equitably distributed across the team. So with that being said, it's just keep in mind that you may not be able to complete your IDP 100% of the time each year, but if you can end up making inroads for what you want to accomplish each year, then you're definitely taking your professional development and your career to the next level. In terms of critical and strategic thinking, something that I've definitely learned to appreciate over the years and learned to emulate myself is being a better or more avid reader of current events and international affairs, and learn how such matters can ultimately impact your particular organization by applying critical and strategic thinking skill sets. You also want to be able to continue to liaise with the public and private sectors in furtherance and networking and developing dynamic problem-solving strategies. I guess we can cut that one out. And lastly, you want to be able to continue to liaise with public and private sectors in furtherance and networking and developing dynamic problem-solving strategies. It all goes back to being able to network and building your network, because it's just networks are not just important for obtaining a job, but they also pay back monumentous inroads by leveraging and building coalitions, which is also an ECQ that we recently talked about in terms of how you can leverage your relationships and compile resources to achieve joint goals. And that's definitely going to help you in support of your problem solving strategies and support of achieving your goals for your organization, because no person is a village. We definitely need to have consensus and collaboration in the support of being a productive government employee in the 21st century. With that being said, this concludes my presentation. As always, please feel free to reach out to me direct if you have any particular questions about the topics. I'm definitely more than happy to field any questions via email, or if you want to learn more about federal law enforcement careers, I'm definitely a great resource that you can pursue and leverage in support of your future educational career endeavors. Thank you, everybody. I hope you all glean some pearls of wisdom from this training presentation.